Celebrate Recovery. And a lot of it was what I needed was the fellowship that was here and the support. Some of the times we just need to be heard. We really don't need answers at that point in time. And God really worked that out for me because as I came in and I felt loved and supported, I was able to grow. And as I was able to accept God's love. And then I slowly started to realize who God made me to be and who He could help other people heal through the program. So I always say we come in with one thing and we continue to keep coming because God keeps working on us. And so I came in with anxiety and depression and PTSD, which I can tell you that after 5 years, God has healed me of my anxiety and depression. Something that is amazing. If you've ever dealt with those types of things, you know that is such an identity of your life and such a shadow, but it can be healed if you allow God to heal you. As I worked through the 12 steps, I realized that I had a lot more issues than what I came in for. Imagine that. He just keeps working. So I continue to work through codependency traits as well, a divorce, multiple children, friendship losses. My father is actually an addict. So there's lots of things that I've been able to walk through and forgive. There's been a lot of forgiveness in my walk, and that only comes from God. So that's a little bit about my journey here at Celebrate Recovery, but why it's so personal to me. We don't realize that what God can do with you when you're in such a broken place. And I had no idea that the gifts and the talents that He's given me would be this. I did not know that my heart was as big as it was for people. And honestly, I never want to see someone in that much pain as I was in. I can't imagine now looking back, I don't even recognize that person that I was. So with that being said, a little bit of how Celebrate Recovery works is we start in this large group, which we're doing right now. This would be your large group meeting. You'd come in and we do praise and worship songs. Well, you're halfway there. And then we would hear a lesson. We have 25 lessons in our lesson book. And the first lesson, just for a little glimpse, is called denial. So we all walk in a little bit of denial, but some of those places keep us hidden. So with working together, we'll start the lesson and we'll sit in a large group like this. And then afterwards, we would split off into a men's and women's group. And I really want to address what the small group is, because that comes with a little bit of anxiety. Our small groups is an open time to share what you're walking through, but also it's a time to not share. If you would prefer to come and listen to what the other ladies are saying or men are saying in their small groups and what they're walking through, you'd be very surprised about how we're all walking through something different, but we can all relate to one another. That's the true fellowship that comes out of Celebrate Recovery, is we don't see that while we're sitting here. All of us all have something in common, no matter what our walk is. And that love that we can pour out into each other in those small groups to support each other, to talk, it can become really fruitful times of healing. Let's see. Usually we have a lesson sheet in the foyer that falls along with the lesson. And then we go through the small groups and we have that time together in that time of fellowship. When I was praying, before I have Brady come up and read the 8 principles, when I was praying about this service, I felt like last year God really wanted me to address that God loves you, and that's why He wants you to find the healing that He has for you, and that's for every single person. This service, I really felt like God wanted me to address the fellowship of coming here. We come here on Sundays, and that's nice. We have the fellowship here on Sunday mornings, and then we go home, and then we don't really have that godly fellowship throughout our week. And what happens is that we bog down and we fall into sin. We fall into toxic relationships. We fall into patterns that God doesn't want. We don't have accountability or fellowship to hold us up. But when you have that and you build that in Celebrate Recovery, you have a group of people that love and care about you that you can call, that support 24/7. People that share the same experiences as you, that they're just on a journey together to carry your burdens. I heard like the number one thing for God, that Satan doesn't like is unity. When we're tied in unity constantly throughout the week, no one can break that. So now I'll have Brady come up and I'll ask him to read the 8 principles. Let's give a round of applause. Make it less awkward.
Good morning. I didn't know I was reading these till about 2 minutes before I sat down, so it is a good morning. Today I woke up happy, joyous, and free. My name is Brady. I'm a child of God, and for the last almost 4 years I've been freed from the chains of drugs and alcohol, only by the grace of God. And what I'm about to read here is the 8 principles that are based on the Beatitudes. So these are principles that we carry with us throughout this program into our daily lives, and they're based all on Scripture. So that's cool. Principle number 1, realize I am not God. I admit that I am powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing and that my life is unmanageable. Happy are those who know they are spiritually poor, Matthew 5:3. 2, earnestly believe that God exists, that I matter to him, and that he has the power to help me recover. Happy are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted, Matthew 5:4. Number 3, consciously choose to commit all my life and will to Christ's care and control. Happy are the meek, Matthew 5:5. 4, openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. Happy are the pure in heart, Matthew 5:8. 5, voluntarily submit to every change God wants to make in my life and humbly ask him to remove my character defects. Happy are those whose greatest desire is to do what God requires, Matthew 5:6. Number 6, evaluate all my relationships, offer forgiveness to those who have hurt me, and make amends for harm I've done to others, except when to do so would harm them or others. Happy are the merciful, Matthew 5:7. Happy are the peacemakers, Matthew 5:9. Number 7, reserve a daily time with God for self-examination, Bible reading, and prayer in order to know God and his will for my life and to gain the power to follow his will. Number 8, yield myself to be used to bring this good news to others, both by my example and by my words. Happy are those who are persecuted because they do what God requires, Matthew 5:10.
Thanks, Brady. So every service for Celebrate Recovery, we read the 8 principles of the 12 steps. So that's what you got today. So now we're going to go and talk a little bit about the step study that Celebrate Recovery has. In Celebrate Recovery, we walk through the 12 steps with God in our groups, as we call the step studies. The step study is a time to work on your hurts, habits, and hang-ups with godly fellowship and carrying each other's burdens. The women and men's group meet every week over a course of 9 months to unbury the past wounds that keeps us all from God wants to do in our lives, and to find the freedom for the future. Our speaker today has gone through the unpacking of his pain by attending the step study group, and he is here today to share with you the healing power that God has done in his life. The step study works through a 4-pack participant guides, which are also available for purchase out in the foyer. So we're going to give Matt a chance to come up and give us a little testimony about his life. So let's welcome Matt.
Good morning. So my name's Matthew. I'm a child of God who struggles with addiction, codependency, and a lot of pride. When I started attending CR, I was someone who had a lot of questions about faith, God, and life itself. At the start of the year, I had spent the last few years of college partying, smoking weed, experimenting with a variety of other drugs, and just chasing after anything and everything that would fill that hole in my heart. During this time, I didn't know Christ, His promise, and the work He can do with just a little bit of a thing called faith. This is my story of a return to faith and accepting Jesus Christ back into my life. I grew up on a small dairy farm in the heart of Wisconsin. I had a loving family. I have wonderful memories of my grandparents, cousins, and lots of great memories helping my dad out on the farm. And there was a lot of good there, and I'm very thankful for the childhood I had. But there was always some issues at home that my parents had, they had in their marriage, and just a variety of factors that led to a lot of difficulties and pain in my life. My father struggled with his alcohol use, and my mother struggled to be both physically and emotionally present during a majority of my childhood. Over time, this began to take a toll on their marriage, the family structure at home, and myself. During the summer of 2013, I don't remember the exact year, to be honest, it's all a blur during that time. Somewhere around there, my parents finally decided to end their marriage. To say I did not take it well was an understatement. Going into high school, I was dealing with my parents' divorce, figuring out who to live with, bouncing back and forth between, parents fighting over whose house she at tonight, we get you this day, all that fun stuff. In a way to protect myself, I chose to live with my mom, which kind of led me to distance myself from my father, but I was sick of living Friday night you're here, Saturday night you're here, this, that, and the other. So shortly after that, I hadn't spoken to my dad in months at this point, but I'm sitting in class, and I was called to the office and told that my dad got into an accident the night before. He was okay, thankfully, but the other person in the accident looked like she wasn't going to make it. So I sat there in the middle of an office learning that my dad had just drunkenly hit another woman with his vehicle and ended up taking her life. The news was everywhere. For me, everyone in class knew about it. Everybody was asking me about it. I mean, I couldn't get away from it at home. I couldn't get away from it from family. One side of the family was making just a show of my dad and proving that he was such a bad person and he was the problem. And it really made me resentful of the world. I began to think there was an agenda against me, and I began to ask the world for answers to my pain. This began a cycle of turning to drugs and alcohol to remove the pain of my reality. In 2017, I graduated high school and decided to attend college at UWRF, thinking that getting out of this small town would fix all my problems. Sadly for me, all my issues, bad habits, hurts, and baggage not only came with me, but were magnified as I was trying to start a life on my own. I did my best to transition to this new life at college, but found a few issues kept coming to the forefront. I had a hunger to connect with others, but couldn't without the help of substances or drugs. I felt I needed a girlfriend as I saw my value based on that reality, and I consistently sacrificed my own values to impress the world around me. 2021 was a year that all my bad habits came into one unbearable concoction. I remember a lot of nights I would go hang out with my friend group. We would smoke as much pot as we possibly could, have a few drinks, and then I would just lay in my bed until I went to work tomorrow. That was a lot of last year. And it says here, due to the pandemic, a lot of my smoking and drinking habits turned to daily occurrences regardless of my schedule, regardless of my priorities, regardless of commitments I had made. In May, I graduated from college, May of 21. I graduated from college realizing I had a lot of very surface level friendships that didn't have any real substance to them. I had broken up with my girlfriend at the time, thinking I could get a new one at any time. Well, any time had yet to come. At the end of 2021, I was offered a promotion at my work. More money, who wouldn't want it? Due to my habits, I got almost nothing from my training, and honestly, due to a few mishaps and just my behavior at work during that time, I find myself grateful to still be working at the same company and in the same role that I have today. Shortly after this, I took a look in the mirror and was far from pleased from the man who was looking back at me. I had been taking advantage of what real friends I had. There was a constant feeling of being alone and isolated from people, friends, my family, and most importantly, God. I was determined to be better heading into this next year. That's when I started attending CR, was around end of January, early February. After helping a few members of this church, they invited me to service, and I just want to thank you guys for that because you really changed my life. Without much going for me at the time, I decided to check it out. After a few services at Abundant Life Church, I was introduced to Kirsten, who let me know about CR and what it could do for me. At that time, I was looking for something more in my life, and I had no idea what it was yet. After a few meetings, CR started to become something I looked forward to every week. I get to work on making new friends, coming back to my faith, and creating a new identity in Jesus. And I think that's really what got me to stick at this church. I had tried going back to church around July of 2021, so a little over a year ago, and I ran into service, I sat through a service, and I walked out. And it's not that the church it was a wonderful church, but I wanted something more. So coming to CR, making those friendships, and just getting involved in the church is what really got me to stick around. And I got to do all of this while working on and identifying my hurts, habits, and hang-ups. Identity and purpose are words that I didn't have until I accepted Jesus Christ back into my life again. Gaining an understanding that I am a man made in God's image and making a life of serving Jesus has given me a fire for all aspects of my life again. I have someone to work for, someone to do good for, and I understand that someone recognizes the work I do, and I don't need the world to tell me that I'm doing a good job. I've always seen myself as someone who does more than just show up to things, but in my adult life, I could very much say that my actions did not necessarily match that view of myself. Since starting my journey of recovery, taking ownership of things and helping make things happen is something I lean into instead of running from. And that running from piece is huge to me. In college, I had been offered a variety of leadership positions in organizations I was involved in classes and stuff like that. And as soon as the moment came to actually do it, I was gone. So, very grateful that God has worked on that part of me and actually made me stand strong when given an opportunity to lead. Since starting attending CR, my relationship with Jesus, friends old and new, and my family look totally different. I've learned to speak with Jesus any and all times throughout the day and believe that he is working in my every action, which points to step 2. Earnestly believe that God exists, that I matter to him, and that he has the power to help me recover. My friendships no longer have a codependent neediness to them, and I've learned to enjoy my independence again and continue to work on my own journey, and part of my own journey has become serving others both through CR and a variety of other facets. Since the start of my recovery, I've lost many old friends who didn't agree with the decisions I was making. I'm even more thankful for the friends that stuck around and the new ones I've had the opportunity to make since the start of this year. One thing I thank God for consistently is having a healthy relationship with my father again. We never saw eye to eye on many things in life, and it was a lot of blame game as I had issues with drugs and alcohol, and so did my dad, but he was worse, I was worse. It was a back and forth battle. Nowadays, we're both sober, and I'm very grateful for that. We take time to see each other, and we have an active relationship that I get to enjoy almost every single day. I stand on this stage being able to much more clearly define myself for who I am now and who I want to be heading into the future. I'm a child of God who has conquered a form of spiritual death for almost a decade. I've gained an understanding of who I am to God and rebuilt many frayed relationships. I want to thank everyone who's been a part of this church, those who spent hours letting me talk about my life during my lunch breaks or whenever I decide I'm coming to the church. Celebrate Recovery has changed my life, and if you give it a chance, I know it's going to do the same for you. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Matt. It was awesome. So because Matt has walked through the 12 steps, we give out medallions. And medallions are for anybody who has had a victory in their life, no matter what that victory is to you. That's between you and God. And so we'd like to give Matt a medallion for his completion of the 12 steps. So let's give him a round of applause. Congratulations. So I'd like to say that walking through the 12 steps is not for the faint-hearted. It's a huge commitment. But I can guarantee when you come out after a year, you're not even going to recognize the person that you were. And that's the best part. The things that once were hindering your walk with God disappear. You have so much more to gain than you do to lose when you take on the 12 steps. So now I'm going to open it up for anybody who would like to receive a medallion for any personal milestone. You know, sometimes we walk through these things without Celebrate Recovery, but that's why we're here, to tell you about Celebrate Recovery. But those personal milestones in our journey can start before that. Would anybody like to receive a medallion for any walk they've had in recovery for anything? We have had a lot of people. Oh, yay! Come on up. And this is how it would work in a meeting. So I would say, hey, what do you got?
3 years.
3 years. Awesome. Do you want to say your name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar to Brady, I wasn't really planning on doing this today. But my name's Nate Seiko, and I've been overcoming fear and anxiety for 3 years now. So.
Congratulations. These are just tokens of the work that we've put in. We have people who have 41 years of sobriety that come up and get theirs. We have people that come up for a year, 6 months, 3 months, battling depression, anxiety. And they might not have overcome those things, but they're here working on those things. And that's what really matters, is putting the time and effort into doing that. So thanks, Matt and Nate, for coming up here to be a great testimony of what God can do in other lives. We're going to take up an offering now. And the offering is for daycare expenses, books, Bibles, and medallions. So we provide daycare every Sunday for those who come in to Celebrate Recovery. Myself, I have 3 children, and if we did not have daycare, I would not be able to attend. So it's greatly appreciated for helping with the daycare. We have books, which are the 365 devotional out there on the table, and all this stuff is available for purchase. And we have the Bibles as well. The Celebrate Recovery study Bibles are out there. And those who can't afford Bibles that come in to Celebrate Recovery and would like one, we donate those to them. So your offering and is really helping those, so we can buy more Bibles. We just gave one out last week, I believe. And then, of course, our medallions that we buy to purchase, which I told you we have gone up to 41. So you do the math of how many years we actually need to keep so everyone can receive a medallion. So the greatest part about Celebrate Recovery is the service that you have an opportunity to put in service, to be a service of God. And sometimes it doesn't sound very fun considering all the stuff we have going on in our lives. But when I came into Celebrate Recovery, it was the small things for me to be able to be part of a community and a team. And when you help serve Celebrate Recovery, that's what you're doing. You're becoming part of a team. So we usually have a service sign-up sheet to help make coffee, be greeters, to welcome people into the door. On the last Sunday of every month, we have our potluck. It's a monthly potluck and testimony night. So sometimes we have leadership who've come out of the step studies, stepping into leadership, I should say, give their testimonies at that time, where you can hear a 20-minute testimony of somebody's life instead of 10 minutes. where we have a potluck. We do not have small group on those nights. So I always say that's a perfect time to invite a friend or come for yourself just to get a great vibe of what Celebrate Recovery really is and the fellowship that's there. And last but not least is Celebrate Recovery's step study will start in next January. And that might seem like a long time, but the last 3 months have really ripped by. So if that's something that you're seeking, is it the healing and the power of God, I ask you to pray about it. And one more thing is out in the foyer, we have issue pamphlets that Ted addressed a little bit. And those pamphlets tell you, if you're not sure what you're dealing with or what somebody else in your life is dealing with, there's pamphlets out there that describe those types of things. Like, what is a gambling addiction? What is substance abuse? You know, a big one for me was like, what is codependency? There were so many labels of what that looked like. And I thought it was to not be independent. On the contrary, it's the opposite. So if you have any questions about anything that you might be dealing with or somebody else, go check out the issue pamphlets that are out in the foyer. I want to thank the speakers for coming up tonight, or today, not tonight, usually be tonight, right? Today, to share. It's not easy getting up here on the podium and telling somebody about your personal, intimate life, but that's what we're called to do. And God's given them the courage to do that, so I thank you. We're going to stand up together, and we're going to say the Serenity Prayer. Thank you, everybody, for your time today.